back. You are watching another episode of Creative Writing Advice with me, JJ Barnes. If you don't know me, I'm a writer and an author and a screenwriter and a filmmaker and a blogger and a YouTuber, obviously. And I do a lot of storycraft, writing advice, writing tips, things like that. So this is what you're here for. And today I'm going to be talking to you about how well should you know your characters. Now, you can know your characters really well before you start telling your story. You can know your characters really well after you start telling your story. I'm going to talk to you about that. How well you should know them before, how well you should know them afterwards, backstory knowledge, everything like that, because it will impact not only your story and how it affects your audience, but how you write it in the first place. So, for instance, some people like to do, before they start writing the actual story, a real deep dive onto who those characters are, the protagonist, the antagonist, any key players that are circulating around them. You might want to do an investigation in your mind into who they are, who they were, their childhood, any damage they are carrying, any heartbreak, any mistakes they've made that have changed them, any passions they have, any loves, anything about that character that might be impacting the story. And the good side of that is if you send those characters into any situation, you're going to know how they react. And they're going to be consistent. If you have a character that has, say, a broken heart in their past that has really made them insecure and anxious about falling in love again, if somebody flirts with them, they will behave differently to somebody who is fresh and naive and desperate to fall in love. So if you go in knowing all of that, all of the heartbreak of that character, all of the naivety of that character, when you throw a situation in their path, you're going to know how they behave. And that's really good, and the consistency is good too, because you don't want to break your character because in this moment they behave this way and in that moment they behave another way. If you go in knowing everything about them and knowing them really well, you won't break them to suit the story. You'll make the story react to them. And that is a very good thing. The downside to doing a lot of plotting in advance for your character is sometimes the story just won't go with you. And I know you're in control of the story and you're writing it, but if you write yourself into a situation where you're like, I've planned this entire life for this character, but right now I really need them to behave differently, you're then stuck. You're then letting your characters and the work you've done before you tell your story control your story. If you find out who those characters are along the way, and you just have a vague idea of them, but you shape them as the story goes and you have them react to things because in that moment the story requires it. Your story is going to move how you want it to as the writer rather than how past you thinks a character should behave. The thing is, that way madness lies in terms of inconsistency. You can have your characters change and move and the story affect them and then them change differently and then behave differently and then react differently, and it loses its consistency and its flow, and your character becomes somebody it's really hard to get a grip on because they do not behave in a way that suits them in different moments, and you need to work on that. You need to keep an eye on it. But that is what editing is for. If you realise you've changed a character a lot along the way, you go back in and give them that consistency. But it can be really challenging. So the question of how well you should know your character before the story, there is some real ups and downs. If you know them really, really well, you keep them consistent, you have a strong idea of who they are, they do not blend into everybody else, and they are a person that you can move around rather than just a blank slate. But if you don't know them at all, you're going to change them, they're going to be inconsistent, you're not going to be able to get a hold on them because you're not really sure who they are, and if you as the writer aren't sure who they are, your audience won't know who they are, and then they won't emotionally connect to them. You need to know who the person is you're investing your time in, which means you as the writer need to know who they are. So there has to be a kind of middle ground. You have to go into it with an idea. Okay, this person is scared of love, this person is keen to find love, this person is damaged by a childhood trauma, this person is scared of heights. And if you give them something about them, you can carry that through and make sure that they are consistent in their behaviour. But you can still be flexible. You can still make it so that, you know what, actually this character, if they have a terrible fear of spiders, that will really suit my story right now. And it doesn't matter that you haven't plotted it in their past, because probably won't have affected the story until now. And it means that you get to stay in control of your story without letting your characters control it for you, because you're the writer, right? You need to be in control of those characters. But at the end of the story, this is a different thing. How well should you know your characters at the end of your story? You should know them as well as you know yourself. You should be able to look at that character and be like, right, if this situation presented themselves, I know exactly how they'll react. And it might have to come after you've edited it and given them a consistency, because you're going to edit those characters. You're going to edit them, make sure that they flow, make sure that you are tracking their emotions, that their history is all in line through the entire story. At the end of that, if anybody asks you anything about that character, you should be able to answer it. You should be like, yeah, if you put my character on a roller coaster right now, I know which one would scream, I know which one would refuse to go, I know which one would love it, I would know. If you want to say, this character's about to have a heartbreak, that character's going to be dumped by the love of their life, you should know which one is going to be angry, which one is going to cry, which one is going to beg, which one is going to go on like a massive rebound, binge drinking, sleeping around situation. You should know, because you've written those characters. You've got them consistent. You own them. You control them. They are yours to move. But at the beginning of your story, you should know a little bit. You should be able to control that story around them, make it work. But through the story, by the end of it, they're yours. You've got them. So thank you very much for watching my video about how much you should know about your characters. I hope this has helped. Remember, your characters need to be consistent. They need to flow through the whole story. You need to be able to move your story around them. But you can't let the history you have created for your characters stop you telling your story. Don't write it all down. Don't. Have an idea in your head, but don't be locked by it, because sometimes it won't work and your story matters. And you made these characters up. You can do anything you want with them, as long as it makes sense for the story, and as long as those characters are consistent. Don't let something you plotted before stop you telling the story how it needs to be told. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to my videos. I'm going to be doing one every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 9:30 in the morning. I also have a blog. If you go to my website, jjbarnes.co.uk, you can find links to my blog over there where I'm writing loads of articles about writing advice. There's also my books, my film and TV work, and everything else I've got going on there, and my social media. So come find me, come chat to me, tell me what you're working on, and drop a comment below. Tell me how you know your characters. Are you a big pre-plotter and you just adapt it as you need to, or do you go in completely blind and fresh and discover it as you go? Tell me about what you're doing. Tell me why that method works for you. Thank you very much, and I will be back again soon. Bye.